Okay. There you
All
go.
right. Well, look, I am excited about this conversation we're about to have. This is certainly a dialogue that needs to happen, especially in light of everything that's happening, not only in our nation, but around the world.
So much.
And when I saw your Facebook message this morning to watch the video from PragerU, that it warmed my heart, and I thought there's no better person that I would like
Oh,
to speak to about this than you. I mean, really, I
well,
want to. I'm not just saying that. I'm being perfectly honest with you. So,
well,
so
thank
let's start with, since we are recording this and we do want to share
you.
with other people. So let's start with what you thought about what you saw and why you thought about sending it to me.
Okay. And so, excuse me. And so, um, right. So before we get into all that, I do just want to say, kind of what we touched on before, just that I'm grateful, so grateful to you. And I think this is part of why you came to mind, is because we do have a history, we do share faith, and I want you to feel 100% comfortable, not to worry about offending me. If I get my feelings hurt, maybe I need to. If I get offended, maybe I need to. But I trust that God will minister to me, to will teach me, will heal me, whatever. And same for you. So if I need to be corrected, I'm open to that. And I know your heart is the same too. So
Yeah,
anyway.
and so just in terms of context, we are talking about race and prejudice, then everything that's happening in the world, and the video that we saw. The gentleman's name again was what in the video? Do you?
Officer Brandon Tatum.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a former police officer. He now lives in Texas, and I apologize to him if he ever sees this. I can't remember where he was a police officer, but I know he served for several years, and I know that he still very much identifies and very much works with police forces and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I know that we talk about race and race wars and differences and all that, and not to sound petty, but I do think it's important that for me anyway, that I'm purposeful. And I'm also dog sitting my daughter's dog, so if you hear that, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
But anyway, so you'll probably hear language from me like, skin color.
Oh, sure.
Just because I don't see us as a different race. I don't.
Well, let me also say here that Kristie and her husband Harry were in a Bible study that I taught, adult Bible study at Crossroads Fellowship in North Carolina. So Kristie's in North Carolina. I'm here in Richmond, Virginia,
That's
and
right.
and we're friends. And so it's not like, this is not going to be a clash. This is a conversation about something that needs to be talked about, a candid conversation. It's right in line, Kristie. You don't know this, but it's right in line with where I'm going in the direction of my life. I no longer work in corporate media and advertising.
Oh,
Actually started my own company. It's called My Purpose, MyPower.com, and it's right in line with helping people to define the focus of their life and what they need to do to overcome challenges. So
wow.
that's why
No,
I
I
said
didn't know that.
yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so this is pretty cool, and I probably will get a copy of this recording and put it on my website
Sure,
so
sure.
that others can see it as well. So let's go ahead and get into what we're talking about, which is the video that you sent me, which is pretty cool. If you could tell
Yeah,
them the context of the video.
right. Okay, so it is Officer or the Officer Tatum, I think is his handle, and it's basically him on being featured on a PragerU video where he's talking about the idea of white privilege, and his take on it is, and he, in his own personal YouTube videos, he's pretty candid that he does not believe in the idea of white privilege. He does, in fact, he has shirts, different merchandise that he sells that says white privilege is a myth, things like that. So I know
And
that.
this is a black man, by the way, so that you guys
Correct.
know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so he, that's his personal stand, which may be why he felt compelled to make this video for PragerU. I don't really know any of the politics behind how they choose who does what for them. I don't have any affiliation with PragerU. And so anyway, his basic message, what was it, like 45 seconds? It's
Yeah, it
not
was pretty
long.
quick. Yeah.
It was a very quick video, but he really just says that it's a convenient it's a convenient way to sort of feign humility for white people, because you get to look more virtuous than other white people who don't claim white privilege. And but at the same time that it actually helps you look great, it actually sends a rather negative and could be hurtful message to Black people, because it says after all these years and all the fight, you still aren't equal. I still have privilege that you don't have. So right. He says, you know, that it's just overall, it's just a negative idea.
Hey, I have an idea. So let's do this. Let's see if we can. I actually have pulled up the video.
Oh, okay.
And I think I can play it if you have allowed.
Oh, I surely will. Yeah.
For sharing.
My glasses.
Yeah, if you've allowed for sharing, then I should be able to share this video. So let me get this queued up here and see what we can do. Let's see. All right, hold on 1 second. And my I'm going to share my screen.
And I think at the same time you do that, I'm going to turn my video off. So you
okay.
don't have to look at my head while you're doing that. That was so smart of you to think of how I'm playing that. Okay.
So let's see if this works. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll see if we can pull this up. So share screen. All right. And this is what I want to share. Can you see that?
I can see. Yes, I can.
All right. So let's see if I can play the video here. If it will let me bring that in. Let's see. Does it do video sound? I don't know.
I think if you go down where it says PragerU at the bottom and you double click it, I think it pops up full screen.
Okay, so we're learning on the fly, guys. Whoever's watching, just
look at this teamwork. Teamwork in action. Real time.
And I think on your side, you might have to share video sound.
Okay.
Let's see, share computer sound. Actually, I think it might be on my side since I'm sharing it.
Okay.
I just clicked that. So let's see if this works.
Progressives dominate our colleges and universities, imposing this absurd notion of white privilege on their students.
All right, I'm gonna take it back because I was talking on top of it. So here we go.
Okay.
Today, these so-called progressives dominate our colleges and universities, imposing this absurd notion of white privilege on their students. That's too bad because it does nothing good for white students, and it does nothing good for Black students. But of the two, ironically, the white students get the better of the deal. Let me explain. To acknowledge your white privilege is supposed to make you feel bad. Only it doesn't. It makes you feel good because by acknowledging your white privilege, you're declaring yourself to be enlightened. And as a virtue bonus, it also makes you a better person than those whites who don't acknowledge their privilege. White privilege, which is supposed to make you feel bad, ends up making you feel good. Meanwhile, real damn is too. What makes whites feel good makes Blacks angry. More than 50 years after the civil rights movement, the message is, you're still oppressed.
All right, so you heard all of that, right?
I did. It went out for just a second, but I think anybody watching would get the gist of it.
All right, cool. All right, so let's bring your video back in and let's get into this discussion. So good. I'm glad we were able to play some of it for whoever's watching and you guys could see kind of what was said. So, all right, so let's get started. So you go ahead. Where do you want to start at?
Well, so my original question to you was, what are your thoughts about that?
I don't agree with him. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. Okay, sorry about that. I don't agree with his view on the fact that there is no white privilege. I think ignoring truth is dangerous. And truth is based in reality, right? So we're talking about the present reality, maybe not of me personally, but of what's happening in the world. And that's the truth that we got to deal with, right? Perception is truth. So right now, I think in the world, there's
perception is truth.
Yeah, each person's perception becomes their truth, not the truth, their truth.
Oh,
Yeah, their truth. And that's what the issue is right now. I mean, we're dealing with people who believe a thing, and we got people with different views, and those views are clashing. And actually, I'm glad you said that, because really there's only one truth.
right. That's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Is wait a
Yeah, I
second.
want you to and say that. I need you to
Yeah,
get in
well,
there.
I was gonna let you finish.
Okay.
And then I was gonna call you on it because I'm like,
Okay.
wait a second, hold on, because here's the thing: if I perceive you as maybe you lean into the screen, I don't know, just something ridiculous, and I said, whoa, that's an act of violence against me, Stephen.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I
Kristie,
should
that
have
was not,
I should
but
have
I
said
perceived
perception
it.
is
But I
reality.
perceived it.
I should have said perception becomes reality for the person, not truth. Because
Yeah,
you're
but okay, but so we are in an age where you're right. People are allowing that to happen. That, oh my gosh, I felt this, but you know what? People go through a haunted house all the time, and you have a perception. But guess
yeah.
what? Those are still actors. None of that became a reality.
Mm-hmm.
People have. I mean, we actually have perceptions all the time. And for instance, and this is based on data, like real research. I know that gets thrown around a lot, but so parents give their young kids cell phones, right?
Yeah.
And then and as a result, they might say things like, no, you can't go, however many blocks away. It's too far. And the child says, well, what if I take my cell phone? So then the parent, again, based on studies, says, oh, okay, yeah, as long as you have your cell phone. So there's this false sense of security. What are you gonna do? You're gonna listen to your child be kidnapped? I mean, what are you really gonna do, right? When the person causing your child harm grabs the phone, smashes it, throws it, and drives away with your kid. I mean, that's a horrible, horrible example, and I'm sorry. I'm not making light of a terrible scenario.
It's a great example.
I'm just saying, especially in the time we live in right now, I'm not trying to make light of something that somebody might have lived through. I'm just saying that just because we think something or we feel something doesn't mean it's true.
No, that's real.
Does not mean it's true. And I think that we all have filters, and I think our filters are severely skewed for so many reasons. One, most of us live behind one or multiple screens,
Right.
and so we're very isolated, and we don't realize that what we're feeling is actually a pretty common feeling. It's just part of being a human being, and that's okay. We also conflate issues consistently, and we also, I think, for the most part, confuse correlation with causation. And then we end up just muddling all these things together, and we come up with some personal truth. And
well, that has been programmed into people. Every generation has been inundated by technology that has created this sense of the way I see things and the way I'm taught is my reality, right? And kind of like what you said about the haunted house, which actually is great, is that a person going to a haunted house, which I will not advise, by the way, but a person going to a haunted house is going to get scared. That's why they're going. But when they get into the house and they go through the experience, the mind doesn't disassociate the environment with this is not real. They, in the instant that it happens and they're scared, the body reacts to that stimulus and it creates that reality for that person. And so it is that person's perception that has now caused them to put their body into a state of fear. That's what's happening right now in this world. Your perception, you have something?
yes,
You want to say something?
I do, because isn't it also then that person's moral responsibility to keep reminding themselves that this is a haunted house, that this isn't real?
Well, when you say that, when you frame it that way, then you have to ask the question, is everyone moral?
No, I don't.
Yeah, not everyone wants to be moral and could care about being moral. They're
I
just
don't
kind of
care.
right.
No, I don't have to ask that question. I disagree with you. I don't have to ask that question because
Okay.
by being a citizen in this country,
Hmm.
you are partaking. You are participating. That's what I was looking for. You're participating on some level in a social contract. And so I'm not asking you what your very specific personal moral code is. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm saying that you don't get to go off in your own fairyland and create this perception and then step back out into the general public
I have a
and
question.
and then act out whatever your perceived truth is. You don't get to do that.
Okay, so we
Of
talked
course
earlier
you do
about.
now. It's 2020. You do get to do that.
Okay, so that's what I was just about to say. That is that I would agree with you on that in terms of if we're trying to build a country that's going to be stable and a country that all men are, you know,
What else are we trying to do?
created, well, all men are created equal, and that we all are looking for the common good. That what you said made sense, but that's not at all what's happening now or has been happening over the last 10, 15, 20 years. There's been a slow, systematic programming of future leaders to be anarchists, not to contribute to society, but to rip society apart, to question everything, to destroy that which has been true for so long that the country was built on, and to create in the destruction and chaos a new form of living that is what they want it to be. They're kind of want to rebuild America in their own image, the one that they've created for themselves, where they're free to go and defame and destroy and vandalize, and under the guise of freedom of speech
And
and
who wins?
freedom.
Who wins in that?
Well, see, this is the thing. What I see in America. There are two Americas. There's the people in America who are building on top of the foundation that was there, and there's those who are coming along to take out bricks and destroy what's being built because they don't like it anymore. They don't want it anymore. That's what we're seeing play out. Even amongst the protesters, there are those who are peaceful, and then those who have come amongst them to destroy, the peaceful protests and to be anarchists, to hijack the peaceful protests and the death, so that they can now push forth their agenda. And they're actually being caught. There's videos of people paying
Good.
people to throw bricks and people giving wood to burn that wasn't even in those neighborhoods, and
Right.
so all of that's being
Good.
caught. And even there's a video of a guy who spray painted on the building a Target, free stuff for everyone, and he's all, he's got on his gear. He's a white gentleman, and he's like busting out every window with a hammer. And the protesters are coming up to him, going, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, what
Good.
are you doing?" So he walks off, and they're like, "Are you a cop? Like, what are you doing? Are you a cop?" And so now there's this question of, are there people who have been sent there to further agitate and cause problems? So, but let's not go there. Let's go back. Let's get back to what we were talking about, because we're talking about white privilege. And so what I was saying is that I don't agree with his statement that there's no such thing as a white privilege. Okay, so we're not going to ignore that. I don't agree with that statement. But what I do believe is that a person's view gives them their reality, and I think that's what we're dealing with, is this reality that's been created in those who are white, born white in America, that somehow, because you're born white, that it now in this time period has given you power or influence over groups of people that other groups, minority groups, for example, Hispanic and African American and other groups, should not have a right to, and especially will not be, those rights won't be reinforced by law enforcement, as we can see, government, and there's a lot of different things. So, but your question to me was, what do I think about white privilege? Was that
Just what you thought of the video, whether or not you agreed with him, or what your thoughts were about that.
So when when my mother raised my brother and sister and I, we were raised to understand that there's only one race, and that's the human race. My mom did a really good job of having us understand that we are who we are because of all of those who come before us in our family that are multicultural. We have white, Black, Indian, Jewish, all of that's in our family line. So
As do we. Yeah.
So to hate any part of a race that's on the earth that are a part of us, we're hating ourselves, number one. And number two, we should see, like you said, all people that we come in contact with as someone that we can show love to. It's not, because I'm scared of you because of your color or where you come from, that I'm not going to be kind or have community. That's ignorance, right?
Yeah,
So
my Bible tells me that mankind, human beings, were made in the image of God. How in the world then am I to choose which ones those were or are, and which ones they aren't, and who? And guess what? If there's a human being on the face of the earth, and there's something in that human that is a reflection of God. So to hate that person, how then do I say I love God?
it's true. I mean,
I don't understand that those two things are diabolically opposed. I don't understand diametrically opposed.
If you
Well,
get
it's diabolical too,
it's
but
diabolical too. Yeah, right.
it is. Yeah, but not what I meant to say.
If you get down to the root of that, when it comes to Christianity, which is a whole separate subject, but when it comes to Christianity, it should be noted that anyone who calls himself a Christian, but yet is a racist or prejudice, there's something they are forgetting about the origin of our faith, is that we all are related. We are all of one family. Because if you're a Christian, you have to believe that when God said he destroyed the earth with a flood, and Noah and his family were the only family left, and all generations came from Noah, that means that everyone on the planet came from Noah's 3 sons, right? And then even further back,
I was saying before that, Adam and Eve. So.
Yeah, and back to the garden is Adam and Eve. They were the only couple on the planet, and everyone came from them. So we're all one family. That's why I said before about there only being one race. It's the human race.
So, and I'm not saying this is my belief, but even if someone's listening and they say, oh, well, I don't believe in creationism like that. So, maybe somebody who's going to listen to this says, well, I believe in, evolution or Big Bang or whatever, but from however they might choose to do this, from a Christian framework, within a Christian framework.
Right.
Then
how do we deal with it?
That still means that God put all the pieces in place. And so you're right back to the same places. I just wanted to kind of put that in there, that whether you believe in Adam and Eve or you believe in the literal flood or whatever, it's still back to God ultimately putting things in motion for creation. And and so I don't see in any way how I can say I'm a Christian and then pick and choose who I'm gonna approve of, hate, think less of. I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. I can't justify any of that.
And that's the whole nother problem with understanding what it means to be a follower of Christ and all of that. But if we take the Bible, we take Christianity out of the equation, and we just look at it from a human standpoint, how do we deal with what we're dealing with today, which is, prejudice against a person because of their color, right? And so when we get to, white privilege is just stating that a person that is born a certain color has more rights than those who are not that color. And
so what rights do I have that you don't have?
All right, and the rights are perceived rights. These aren't God-given rights. This is just perception by those who are that color, right? So
so hold on. All right, so hold on. So you've laid out 3 different layers of rights here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be useful for this conversation if we sort of identify what those are, because you've laid out, we have God-given rights.
Yep, that's in Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Wait, what?
That's written in our law. That's what they're trying to take apart, is the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution is under attack because of the rights that were given by the founders of our country, and the inalienable rights, right?
Right.
So they were kind of quoting from the Bible, actually, some of those. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Okay. So, but for this purpose, let's separate that. Let's just say outside of U.S. documentation.
Okay.
We just have actual God-given rights.
All right.
That somebody might apply to a human being from anywhere.
Okay.
Right. Even if we were out in outer space and we we came across another being, we might just extend these rights to, you know, something else that we perceive to be alive.
Yep.
And then we have our actual U.S. law.
Okay.
Right? Because that is, we have the U.S. law that protects our rights, right? And that's where we would say, as you said, the Constitution, and I'm just kind of writing this down so I can make some sense of this. Our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence, which serve different purposes, but they don't contradict each other. Okay, and then the third level is what you said is just what we just perceive.
Right.
Okay, so let me say this about that. So, taking into consideration that mere mortals wrote our United States Constitution and Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
And mere mortals carry out that law even today, right? Which means that there is a plethora of opportunity to completely and utterly screw it up, okay? But
fair.
I do believe that our founding fathers created those documents with a certain measure of genius and in great earnest. And I think that as we sit here, you know, rounding up to 300 years later, that serves as some evidence that they did a fairly good job. So we have, and those things mirrored, regardless of every single one of those gentlemen's personal statement of faith. Those rights that were to be extended to individuals in this country were based on Judeo-Christian values, and that's should not be debatable, because we can just simply look at something as quickly as the 10 Commandments, like don't steal, don't lie, don't murder, we just kind of go down that list.
Right.
And we have laws in this country that would support every one of those, like all the way down to like don't run off with your neighbor's wife, like all of those things. Okay, so now it's also argued with some accuracy, it's argued that it took years for those rights to catch up to all people that looked all ways.
Yeah.
Okay. And right now we're talking about primarily people with white skin and black skin, right? And sort of, you know, that spectrum. And I understand there's, you know, sort of the American Indian side, and there are different things we can get off into, but my goodness, we'd be here forever and ever. So for this one conversation, we'll just try to address this one extremely layered and complicated issue. But you know, what is interesting to me is that I think that you're right, that we do have a group that their narrative, the story that they tell over and over, and boy, do they have a really loud, strong voice. Their narrative is that this country was founded on everything that's wrong, and that if that is the case, Stephen, why would we try to preserve this country? Why wouldn't we dismantle it? Because it's ultimately evil. And so if that's the case, it makes good sense to dismantle it. No wonder you've got people in the streets or on university campuses, or even in their high schools, who don't know their history, and good grief, that's the truth. And they think that it's a virtuous thing. This was so evil, and I mean, it's with great conviction that they want to rip down monuments and they want to tell a new story. And what I might suggest, I might just bring up, is that first, anyone who says that it took a really long time for the rights to catch up with everybody, and we might still be working on that, is accurate. That's true. It is. Imagine not being in 2020. Imagine being back in 1750, 60, 70, whatever, where slavery around the entire globe is a norm, where a lot of the people, and I said that on purpose, just people, white people of every different continent, came here with varying levels of slavery, okay, to sell themselves, to sell their children, to do whatever to get here, because there was a dream, there was a new opportunity. Their own countries were war torn, were famine stricken, were whatever. So they did come here. And now imagine being one of the people who decided to put in writing, hey, what if, I mean, I'm not saying we can make it happen today, but what if we actually dreamed of a place where people, I don't know, like, don't shoot me as soon as I say it, but what if everybody's free, right? And we have to remember that the people who wrote these things down, it was treasonous, right? Because this was against the crown. I mean, these things were not, nobody was rallying for them. These were oftentimes met in secret and written in secret. And so, you know, these things, lives were shattered and risked and lost over these very ideas, these documents, and at the time, ideals, right? And so I guess what I'm saying is, to acknowledge those things is not to then ignore that we haven't arrived yet. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. I feel with a clean conscience before you as my friend, before God who we know is listening, and before my own conscience, I can say, I believe this, and I believe this, and I believe their truth is intention, and I believe that they can exist at the same time. And I don't believe that just because we haven't arrived, everything behind us is evil. Now, am I saying that slavery is not evil? Obviously not. Of course, that's horrid. I personally cannot even imagine that is so far outside of anything that I could imagine. I mean, I don't have a bigger, stronger word for that. That's everything about that is repulsive. I don't know. I can't even fathom that. And I know that American slavery was different. It was a slightly different brand than some slavery experienced in other parts of the world. I get that too. I'm not diminishing that in any way. What I'm saying is, if we're talking about something like white privilege in 2020, my question is, what rights before God do I have that you don't have?
Oh, now before God, no, God is, no, we have to, this conversation can't be held in that context, because
exactly. So then the next layer,
we're one race. There's no other, there's no difference between
So
God.
the next layer, so then what rights before the U.S. law do I have that you don't have?
Okay, now there's a ton of those. So
that's what I want, and that's
yeah.
what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
It goes all the way back from the Jim Crow laws in the South to when the slaves were free with the Emancipation Proclamation, where they were supposed to be free, and slave owners didn't tell slaves till like 2 or 3 years later. And there were laws put in place to protect those land owners.
Yep.
To now, to even today, there's laws on the books that prevent African Americans from getting loans and getting qualified for businesses and land that we should have a right to because we helped build the country. And those are discriminatory laws. So there's a lot of things that are because of the color of your skin and all of that, you have access to. But then you also deal with a second thing, and we won't get off into that, but because you're female, you may be white, but you're female. And so there's things against you even within the white race that you have to fight against too. So
yeah. So like just to, I don't know, within the last 20 years or something ridiculous, I would have had to have my husband's signature to even get a credit card.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So those are the laws that I'm talking about, those unjust laws that make it very evident that those who have power will legislate their racial preference through laws so that they have the legal right then to justify their actions against you. So that's kind of the challenge with America, is that they act as if they are a just nation, you know, and sadly, you know, times like this come to show.
That's interesting.
Hmm?
You just said America will act as if they.
Yeah,
are a
thanks.
just
I
nation.
don't consider myself to be part of that issue. I'm the part of America that still has hope that we are one people moving together collectively to make a fair and balanced world, not only in our nation, but in our world. Like those who, outside of saying that I'm Christian or I'm Black, but that wherever there's injustice, we stand up. You know, I just recently went downtown Richmond, Virginia, with a group of pastors where they were doing the march and the peace march for George Floyd, and what we did was we did a prayer walk, and where they were walking down the street, we just kneeled and we prayed and prayed over the city. Well, that's our part. Our part is not to join into that crowd to then have it somehow be looked as if, as pastors, we're going to be a part of the looting and rioting and all.
Right.
We're not. That's not us. But our part is to pray. Our part is to show unity, and that's the part of America that I'm a part of. I'm a part of that part of America that still loves and still has hope, even loves our
Right.
enemy, quite
Right.
honestly, which needs to happen in order to win your enemy. You have to love him, you know. So if you hate him, he's justified for fighting you. But anyway, so that's one of the things I think that we have to deal with when it comes to those laws, is that the same law that has now allowed the officer who put his knee on the neck of Mr. Floyd and kill him, and the videos circulate for 24 hours a day for the last 3-4 days, and everyone is seeing it. This man get killed over and over and over again. After 8 minutes, the same law that protected this officer for 3-4 days and not get arrested. It took all of the rioting to get him to be arrested. Those laws protected him from getting arrested. Now, those same laws are protecting the other 3 officers from being arrested, where if you reverse that, and let me give you this is the thing that people fail to realize. You can justify law enforcement, there's a process, blah, blah, blah. But I tell you what, if that was a Black man that had his knee on a white man's neck and he got killed, he would have been arrested quickly or killed by the mob. The second thing is, if that was any kind of man, Black, white, Chinese, that had his knee on a dog's neck and killed it,
Oh,
there'd
yeah.
have been just or any person, male or female, with their knee on a child's neck, it would have been the same thing, right? So, but the issue is, it was a white man on a Black man's neck who died, and there was a slow process for how we're going to deal with this. And now, not only that, but then what they charged him with initially caused more riots. And even in the riots, there were more cops beating up more, not just Black people, but everybody getting hurt. And then, you know, people got, you know, those issues came out of that. So it's just evident those actions or inactions show why we are where we are today.
So what laws, and I totally agree with you about, heaven forbid it be a dog. That would have erupted. Absolutely. You would have had somebody picked up in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and we can see that even as, and again, it's another issue, but even as we talk about, you know, like abortion laws and things like that. I mean, we talk about life and the value of life and how we don't value life and whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't know that we actually want to get into that whole conversation, but okay. But yeah, 100%. If it's a dog, yeah, somehow we unify. I don't know what that's about, but you mentioned.
No, we value animals over human life. That's what.
Oh, absolutely.
Those who have power have made it so.
We what? Say that again. The what?
Those who have power have made it so.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to that narrative that humans are, we're despicable. We're the reason the planet is dying. There's too many of us anyway. Everything a human touches disintegrates. You know, it's the environmental issue. It's all of that stuff. Humans are just, and I know that in our faith, we do have a belief that we are inherently evil and in need of a savior. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we are irredeemably evil, and the world is better off without us.
Okay, so you're actually at the top of where the issue lies, and that's in the 1% who have all of the money, who have all the influence over our government. Our government rules nothing. It's those who are above them that have the money that influence things. And their view is that there needs to be population control. Really, one thing that I realized, Bill Gates is a part of it, and a couple other people, but they believe that only 500,000 people should be on the planet, the entire planet. 500,000 Okay, so that's why we have mass abortions in the millions around the world and all the other issues. But we're not going to get off into the sidetrack. I just want to say that you're exactly right on population control being one of the issues. So.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, and you can hear that because you get these guilt messages where, you know, everybody, you know, you're supposed to feel guilty if you have more than one child, or if you even have any child, you know, like AOC was talking about in these times, you know, especially millennials, you really need to consider, is it even moral to have a child?
But see, that comes from, and it gets back to the strategy that has been put in place in order to program the future generations to submit to a socialist system, a socialistic system. If you look at China, that's all, everything they're saying, everything that's happening is China. And China is living in that environment, and you're seeing it being duplicated in America, and it's just no one ever thought, well, we on this level never even believed it could happen like this, but it has.
Yeah, it has. It has.
So let's get back to white privilege. So what is white privilege, and what, how do you seem to have an advantage over those who are not white, right? So that's what we're going to get to. So when you were growing up, in your elementary school, was it interracial? Did you have an interracial class?
Yes.
So what part of the country did you go to school in?
I went to school in Virginia. I went to school in Florida, and I went to school in Texas.
So as a white female, did you ever have any run-ins with racism?
Yes.
Racism.
Yes.
But now, was there anyone in your family that showed racism?
No.
Okay, so this was racism that was outside of your family. Was racism accepted in your family as something that happens and we don't say anything, or something that happens and we should say something?
Oh yeah, any injustice. It was absolutely seen as an injustice, and if there's ever an injustice, you have a moral obligation to speak up to that.
Okay, so
speak against that. Just like I taught my kids, if you ever find yourself with any influence, you should always use that influence for good and to help someone else with less influence. You know, so like if you're like in the popular crowd, wherever that is at school, and there's a new kid or a kid that's bullied or a kid that's less popular or somebody's hurting their feelings or whatever, you can use that then to step in to that situation with whatever influence you have.
All right, so that influence is what I'm talking about. So when and still talking about school, was there ever a situation where you saw someone that was not white being treated wrong like that through racism or prejudice, where something should be done, and maybe you said something about it?
Yeah, I've seen white and not white. Yeah.
But we're gonna
and I've spoken and not spoken.
So we're going to just say from the white side, because I'm going to handle on the black side. So that's you handle on the white side. You, as a kid, something happens and you saw it was racism. Did you have, and you knew that it was something that needed to be dealt with?
To somebody who was not white?
Yeah. Was your race, the racism you saw, did you see white racism against non-white people, whether they were black or Hispanic or anything like that?
You know, so I was in, gosh, we moved so much. I'm trying to remember, third, fifth grade, somewhere, maybe fourth grade. Let's go with, we'll split it in the middle, fourth grade.
Yeah.
And I have a little scar right here. You can see it right there. And I was sitting at the table. You know those like kidney shaped reading tables where the teacher would sit like in the middle and you got to kind of sit. Okay. So a group of us had finished our work, and we got to do a some kind of a craft. I don't even know what it was for, but it had glue and it had construction paper and scissors and whatever. And so my friend, who I cannot even remember his name now, turn this off, sorry. Okay. And anyway, he we were playing back and forth, and just kind of being silly, just, you know, probably something we shouldn't have been doing anyway. But anyway, so I picked up scissors, and before that it was like a glue stick or whatever, and we had been snatching things, just kind of snatch, you know, like something, he just kind of snatched it, I'd snatch it or whatever. And so this time it happened to be scissors, and I picked them up, I kind of fumbled them or whatever, and had the blade part, and he snatched them.
Okay, now was he black?
He was.
Okay.
And when he did, and my teacher was black, and when he did, it cut me right here. And of course, at the time, this I've grown since then, but this was like right in here.
Right.
And it was it was smooth. It took me a second, like it stung, but it took me a second to even realize that I was bleeding and that I was cut to the degree that I was cut.
Mm.
And my teacher was male. I was a black male. And when, you know, I think I raised my hand and I was like, you know, I need help. And when he came over, he was immediately just angry. I mean, it was like a panic. And it took me a second to realize, I think his panic was not as concerned for me. Like, oh no, you're cut, but more like, oh no, what have you done? And he snatched that little boy up by the arm.
I'm sure he did.
And I remember I immediately was crying. I wasn't crying before, and I was immediately crying and saying, it was an accident. It was an accident. It was my fault. Like we were both playing. We were just playing. And I was so upset. I was just so upset because I was like, you didn't even stop to find out what happened. You just, you know, I'm being whisked off to a nurse's office. They're going to call my mom. I have to leave because I got to go to the doctor or whatever, get something done. But I don't know what's going to happen to my friend. And so I was very, very upset. And I'll be honest, that overshadows my memory about what ultimately did happen. I don't mean like neither of us got suspended or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't really have a memory of what happened after that. But I was very upset, and I get a little bit upset even thinking about it now because I just it was so decisive. It just happened so fast, and it was so innocent. We were really just playing. I mean, we were just being goofballs, you know.
Right. And so it sounds to me like you as a child, we could have been friends, right? So
heck yeah, I'd have been
you weren't a child that was afraid to have friends that were black, whether they were male or female, and your parents weren't necessarily, you know, going to get mad if you brought someone black home.
Oh, never.
And all of that. And so
no. Oh, and let me tell you too. So my grandfather, who I think you've met my grandfather, and my grandmother, because they've come there before. So I think you've met them both. But anyway, my grandfather was a master brick mason, and has built, I'm exaggerating here, but probably half of Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, that whole area. A lot of the brickwork that you see if you're driving through those areas, he's done. And and he had, you know, he ran top-notch sites. He never
Wait a minute. What is your nationality? Like, if you did a DNA test, like what's in your family?
So I don't know my mother's side. There's talk that there's some Native American, mm-hmm. Okay, like American Indian, but I don't know what's on her side. But my father's side is extremely Scottish, Highland Scots, which, as you probably know, are very oppressed people historically. So, yeah. You know, so maybe, I don't know. But anyway, but my grandfather ran these construction sites, and as a devout Christian man, he never allowed, I mean, he had a dress code. The man had a dress code for his job sites. And every man on the job site was to behave like a gentleman. He did not allow profanity. He did not allow littering, and he took care of his crews, or he called his men, year round, regardless. If it meant that he and my grandmother, and of course his kids, had a little less, he paid them out of his own money above and beyond the job if the weather didn't hold out or whatever it was, but he wasn't going to allow any employee of his to, I don't know, so dignity is extremely important to my grandfather. And so I'll get emotional here, but so he would make sure, number one, he would pay everyone fair, did not care what your education was, did not care what your skin color was, did not care if you had self-control and you could hold your tongue and behave like a gentleman. There would be no catcalling. Okay, I'm giving away the year here, like, you know, as far as the era, but you would be sent home, like, or I don't even know if you'd have a job after that, but he would not allow disrespect coming off of his job site. He was, you know, his relationship with the Lord is very important to him, and he would not allow anything like that. So in order to work for him, you had to carry yourself professionally, regardless that it was a construction site. But I never heard anything ugly ever, or disrespectful or undignified ever spoken. I mean, he spoke about every one of his employees with like they were all Michelangelos, like they were all just the best men ever on the planet. Like he would do anything for them. And I didn't know what any of them looked like until I don't know, I was probably 5 or 6, and this is back before labor law stuff, and I was allowed to go to the job site with them, and I could go hang out with them all day, as long as I was well behaved, which I was. And he would let me play with sawdust and 2x4, like the little leftovers. Mm-hmm. And so I would make floor plans, like his big floor plans that were in his office at home. And so anyway, I would kind of just do the little areas of houses or whatever I thought I was doing on the floor. But anyway, and yeah, I mean, they'd come over and eat at our table, and I would
So
go
you had a
there.
multicultural crew then?
Oh yeah, anybody, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was all about your behavior. Behavior.
The beautiful thing about that is that's a part of the foundation of how you saw things should be, and you had really good role models to take a look at, and even from your own life, to say, this is how I'm going to treat people. Yeah. You know, and it's in my family line, this is how we treat people. And right. So, you know, moving forward, you know, when you look at white privilege, only comes to play when you have people who are white that will use race as a way to divide people groups. So if your teacher was a white woman or a white man, and for example, I had this happen in art school, or in my art class. My teacher was white, and we had a multicultural classroom. And there was a project that was coming to our school where certain students were selected for to repaint our cafeteria. And also there was like a parade that was coming where students could make these huge masks for the city and be a part of the parade. Well, I'm a very talented artist. I came in and I started doing what I do. And I drew what I thought was an excellent new design for our cafeteria. And she poo-pooed that thing. She let me know that was not good enough. And what she chose, you know, wasn't anywhere close to what I did. And I could see in her an issue. And so I kind of just watched her. Wow. And then when the thing came for the mask and the parade, she instantly picked white students for that. No black students in that either. And so there was a white girl that had was sitting beside me, and we become friends over time. And she didn't like the fact that the white girl liked me. And so one day she decided she had enough, and she sent me into another room. And that was the day I could have slapped that lady in her face. That was, as a student, you know, to be a teacher and not be fair is horrible. But to be a teacher that's not ashamed of your racism, that you can say that you want, you know, I'm moving you from her for no reason, nothing happened. Let me know that that's part of where white privilege comes in, is when you have someone like that has any kind of authority or influence that says, it happens when people they look for apartments or they go to buy homes. You know, they'll get a real estate agent, or they'll go into an office to look at property or to rent an apartment, and they'll instantly be given a whole different form of information and requirements in order to even get, you know, to get put into their system. Whereas if a white couple comes in, it's totally different. And if you have a real estate agent that's either white or black, it happens on both sides. The white real estate agent, not all, but some, will take the black couples to different neighborhoods, but take the white couples to much better neighborhoods. And even black, and this is the craziest thing, I've experienced even having black real estate agents that have taken my wife and I to black neighborhoods to say, this is a black neighborhood where you'll be safer. This is up and coming neighborhood and it's a good investment. And so they play it off on being safe, whereas the other one is just saying, this is where you qualify over here. And I think part of the challenge with you is that you didn't grow up in an environment where white privilege was even a thing. Like, there's no such thing as white privilege. Like, everybody's equal and should be treated fair. But because you are white, and in America, there are places where, like my wife and I, if you and Harry walked into a store and the people in there were white, and actually sometimes black, they would say, hey, let us know if we can help you, and they'll come up to you and talk to you. My wife and I could come right behind you guys. They act like they're bringing up an order or messing with merchandise and wouldn't say a word to us. We've actually walked in stores and walked around and no one said anything to us, but we could hear them greeting white people as they came in, which made us leave the store.
So here's what I'm curious about. Are you aware that happens to me if I walk into a black store?
Sure, absolutely. That's why I said white or black. It happens on both sides. Yeah, it's true.
And so that's what's interesting to me is that there's this.
Oh, now that's prejudice, but that's not white privilege. See, white privilege is what I said. There's no such thing as black privilege, because when I go into a black store and you don't get spoken to, and let's say they speak to me, they're still going to treat me like dirt because they don't want me to be better than them. They're not going to treat me special and give me an advantage because I'm black. They're just like, they don't like you because you're white and they're prejudiced against white people. It doesn't somehow elevate me. It just doesn't.
Okay, so wait a minute. So you're saying so we're talking about a black owned store or what? I mean, I guess we're saying owned, I don't know, whatever. But if I were to go into a primarily black area where there was a black person in the store, I mean, what are we saying now? I don't know. I guess a black owned store. Let's say owned store, whatever.
Right.
We're talking about white area, black area. Is that what
we're really talking about black employee. We're talking about employees because ownership is different, because owners aren't usually the ones talking to you or dealing with you when you come to a store.
No, owners have bills to pay. So
yeah.
Owners see green. They don't really care if you're black, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They want to see your wallet. So but right. So okay, so we're talking about the employees. Right. And so, you know, it's so interesting because, all right, well, let me table that other thought. So what you're saying though is that black employee that doesn't speak to me, but does speak to you, so they're not going to elevate me, but they're not going to elevate you either?
Not at all. Not even close.
So you're saying that's just a rude person?
Right, period.
Okay, so then how come the white person isn't just a rude person?
Because what happens is when you come in the door and they speak to you and they don't speak to me, when I leave out, they're fine with that. And while you're there, they're going to make sure you're taken care of. They're going to give you what you need. And they're going to ask you if you need anything else. They're going to actually give you the service you expect because they know there's consequences. If they don't, you're going to speak to their manager and you're going to get them fired.
Okay, well, first of all, I wouldn't, but the other thing is, so what you're saying is, so if I go into a place where there's a black employee who doesn't acknowledge me, but they do acknowledge you, that's
racism. That's prejudice.
But it's still not privilege.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're talking about white privilege. We're not talking about like racism and prejudice, which is part of that. But we're talking about white privilege, the word privilege there. There's a privilege given to you because of your color. Now, the only difference would be if you walked into a place that was owned by, let's just say extreme, like the Black Panthers or something, you know, or Afrocentric, you know, Hebrew Nation kind of people. You know, they're all about black people, right? So
did you just equate your regular everyday white bread white person with Black Panthers and Hebrew Nation? Is that what just happened?
No, I didn't say anything about white people. I'm talking only about black people now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the difference in black people. If you walked into a store where there were black employees and the owners were a part of, you know, let's just say Black Panther or the Black Hebrew Nation, which is really pro-black.
Right.
So we're not even talking about white people right now. We're just black. And say you walked into the store. So you walked into the store first and you wanted to buy some stuff because you like what they have. They didn't want you in there. They just, why are you even here, right? And you felt that.
Yep.
And maybe they even said something that made you
Yep.
feel disrespected. And then I came in through the door and they greeted me. Once they got you out of the store, they would let me know that I don't even know why she came in here. Like, nothing's in here for her, right? And we need to lift up our black man and our black women, and this is the problem. They think they can get what they, so the whole kind of racism conversation would occur, right? They would be the ones more likely to get privilege because of my skin color. But if it's just, say, a black-owned business, like any business owner, white-owned business, black-owned business, when you come in, the difference is, as long as you're respectful and you're going into a black-owned business, they're going to respect you. Like you said, they'd make money. As long as I come in, same thing. They want to make money. The issue becomes when you go into a white-owned business and they say they're there to make money, but when they see you, they see themselves and they feel like you're okay. But when I come in, they want to make sure I'm not stealing. They want to make sure that we're not there to cause problems. And they're not going to give us the same level of service, period. And that's where the white privilege comes in. And it's not even something you want. It's like, matter of fact, if you and Jill walked into a store together and someone disrespected Jill, I bet you would say something.
100%.
Yeah, because you're not for that, right? And so you're
I wouldn't
really
stay. I would not stay.
Right, they're not getting your money.
100%.
Right?
No.
Yeah. So
and let's be fair, not because she's black. If she was disabled, if she was redheaded, if she was whatever, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter.
Right. And see, you're a bridge to understanding, right? Because you are white, but you were raised to respect all people. You see both sides. You can see both sides. You can see where, like you said, you taught your children. Yeah. You taught them to treat everyone fairly, rightly. Yeah. Period. And so that means that it doesn't matter what environment you come into, as long as they're not disrespecting you, you can exist in that environment because you're not feeling like you're better than anybody. You're just there to be a part of whatever the community is, right? Yeah. And so although you may benefit from white privilege from a society standpoint, it's not something you're asking for or even feeling like you have or expect, right? And I think that's probably why, you're asking the question, because do you feel like you have white privilege?
Well, it's interesting because, so in the world of education, I know that if you and I were to take a test to enter the same university, I would actually be scored more harshly than you, which I think is wildly insulting to you. And so, because while I would have points deducted from my overall score, you would have points added to your overall score. I don't see a lot of privilege in that.
Right.
Now, if we're talking about, an everyday shopping trip, no, I don't really feel that way. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what I feel. And I'm just gonna be really. I hate that this is being recorded. I'm not usually this candid. Is why. I mean, openly with somebody I trust. I am, and I trust you. But like, this is just out for the masses. So I'm like, oh God. If I think that I carry myself a certain way, so I'm gonna say two things here, and they're both not easy to say for me. So, I get teased sometimes because, I will get dressed to go to Walmart. But I don't know if it's about being an 80s kid. I don't know what it is. Remember, we used to get dressed to go to the mall.
Look, we do the same thing in my family. You leave the house, you better get dressed.
Thank you. Right. And that does not include a pair of sweatpants that say juicy across the back. Like, that is not, we don't even own those. Like, that is not a thing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Wow. I don't carry myself that way. And so I think that if, I think that bias 100% exists. And I think that a lot of the time, if we're being honest and we look anthropologically, bias is one of those things that can be a great tool. It can keep us alive, right? Because it helps us assess a situation, okay? And even a prejudice can help keep us alive, because we stereotype things. We have to put things in categories very quickly. What is safe? What is dangerous, right? So if you take this back to living in the environment, the elements, something has large teeth, probably dangerous. Well, guess what I just did? I made a snap judgment, right? I profiled that saber-toothed tiger or whatever. But, and maybe in fact it doesn't even have violent tendencies. However, I avoided it, and maybe I avoid everything. Excuse me just a moment.
That's all right. Hey, you can pause that, by the way.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll pause this because I'm having an ill-behaved puppy.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Yes. Okay, if I can find the pause button, yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
Cool.
All right. So, anyway, so sometimes, I guess maybe the best way to say this is that sometimes, while there might be differences in gender or skin color or whatever it is, sometimes the underlying decision that someone makes, or the reason, the motivation for the decision, isn't about those things. So in other words, if I had an idea and my husband had an idea and you liked his idea better, I could certainly say that you didn't like my idea because I was a woman.
Right.
The truth is, if my idea was stupid, or if my idea just wasn't the most appropriate for whatever vision you had for what you were doing, and my husband's was, it could just be that he just, in all fairness, had a better idea, or the one that fit you, fit your plan best. So, so I guess what I'm saying is, I think that that sometimes I might, like, let's say I'm leaving Walmart and I'm walking out, like, I'm pushing the buggy and my head is high and I'm just walking and I'm dressed, professionally or whatever. And they may or may not ask me for a receipt. Okay. But I can tell you that if the white woman behind me is dressed a certain way, carrying herself a certain way, they're probably going to stop her and ask her for a receipt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but we're both white. We're both white.
So one looks maybe suspicious because she may be poor or dressed in a way that doesn't look like she's sophisticated as you. Perhaps.
Yeah. So now, is it, are either one of those, are they right? Is it reliable? No, of course not. And that's why we have hustlers, right? Because that you fit the stereotype and you can get away with a whole lot. And so we know that you can game that system. We know it's not reliable. We know it may not even be moral. We know all of those things. We know those things. We also know human nature. We know it happens.
Right.
And we know that every time it's not about skin color. We know it's not about gender every single time. Is it sometimes? Yes. I'm not saying that. So but you asked me for my personal experience. And so right. I would say my personal experience is, I feel, if we're going to use the word privilege, I guess, then maybe I've experienced that. I've experienced where, well, I carry myself this way, I might be taken more seriously. Yeah. I'm also, and this is very good, really uncomfortable. I'm also not, I'm not, I guess, unaware of the fact that long hair and shape can attract some attention.
It's true.
And so my mom has said since, I don't know, probably since I was a teenager, she said one of the big differences between me and her, she and I, me and her, is mm-hmm. that if, how did she say it? She said if there was a refrigerator to move, guys would stop to help me move the refrigerator. But if she were trying to move a refrigerator, they would ask her to get the other side. So,
That's
so,
great.
um,
And
right.
it's true. Yeah.
So the thing is, and I can see that in my classroom. I can see that, right? So I teach at the college, and I
Mhm.
have, um, you know, young adult or older adult males in the class, and I can see a difference of attention, or especially some of the younger ones. Oddly, they just get like very protective over like nothing happening, but they will get very protective, and so that's a one way to show some affinity. So anyway, I'm saying that I can see that before I see um like skin color wise. um
Right.
and now again, we're talking about personal experience. I can tell you that raising um my kids had every type of friend you can imagine. I mean, good ones, bad ones, tall ones, short ones, fat ones, skinny ones, black ones, white ones, Hispanic ones, rich ones, poor ones, smart ones, not so smart ones, all kinds. But I can tell you, among their black friends, I'm trying to think of one that they were allowed at their house.
That your children were allowed at their house?
Yeah, I can't think of one, but I know that all of their friends came to our house. But
Okay, now that's a little different because most black families will accept all children at all times. Most black families will, I mean, I'm telling you, most black families will accept all children at all times. The only time it's not acceptable is when that child comes in and demonstrates anything that's racial, like says the N word or
oh gosh,
disrespect
no.
somebody or something like that. That's when they can no longer come. I'm talking about even in the hood.
Yeah,
Like you can bring a white child to the projects that if you're in the project, they could bring them home. They will be cool with that because you know what? Most of the times those kids know the culture and know, the music, and so they're
yeah,
accepted.
yeah. My kids
So,
knew all that.
right. So that's what I'm
So
saying.
my son, this is hilarious to me. You'll probably get a kick out of this. So at one point on the football team, my son in high school, literally the only white child on the team, whole team. Okay,
Wow.
right. And I'm sitting in the stands, and the stands are mixed, right? Because people come out to watch the game, right? And another mom says, I don't know, if she just was uncomfortable. Which one's yours? And I went,
You should have said, the three black guys that are sitting on the end of the bench,
not
with
them.
the white boy sitting beside.
Yeah, right.
With the
I
white
really, I
kid.
just kind of looked at her like, are we going to do this? Because, I mean, okay, I'll play.
Hey, but you know what? She might have thought that they were either interracial or maybe you
I mean,
adopted the
yeah,
kid.
okay, fair enough. But we both
Yeah.
giggled, so we did both giggle. So anyway, it was fine. But and I certainly was not offended. I mean, because I think part of it is you're trying not to offend the other person. So
Sure.
so I respect that. That was fine. But it was just kind of funny.
It
And
is
so
funny.
yeah. So, but anyway, and don't get me wrong. A lot of it was that their friends were. Now we would go on field trips together. We would go on sport trips together. We do all these things together.
Oh,
but
that's cool.
but if they had a grandparent at home, that's when it was they do not. I'm not going to bring a white person home, and I don't know what that is. I don't know. Maybe it's just this area. Maybe it's right here. Because I certainly went to my friends' houses of all different colors.
Wow.
And I grew up in South Miami, so I was a minority. Half my friends, over half my friends were not,
They were black or Hispanic or.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, or some type of Asian,
Okay.
Japanese American or whatever, and Filipino, and whatever. And so there were just everybody's a little bit of everything there, and so it just it really wasn't a big deal there either. But certainly I was culturally speaking, I was in the minority because the flavor's just so different there.
Right.
But yeah, here, yeah, that was kind of a big thing, is that, and my kids, I mean, it took them a little while. Like they didn't understand that, because everybody was welcome in our house, and my kids would never, I mean, they would eat they were raised to eat whatever you are served, and you say thank you, because even if you don't like it, you would do not ever speak that you don't care for something. But somebody still went to the trouble to think of it, to buy it, to prepare it, to offer it to you. So you say thank you, whether you like it or not. That has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says, do you like it? That's a different question.
Right.
And then you can very delicately, sensitively
say,
respond.
well, it tastes different and it's interesting.
Right. Or even it's, you know what, I prefer this. I prefer this one over that, you know, whatever. But never like, oh, we're having that. Ugh. You'd be sent away from my table and this is your house. So no way. But
well, you know, that's one thing that really Jill and I realized about you and Harry was that not only were you in our Bible study class, but you invited us to your home. And that was another way we realized you guys weren't even prejudiced at all, to bring us in your home amongst your children. That those actions demonstrate the fact that you aren't prejudiced.
Oh,
right?
you know what? That's so funny. I mean, I'm glad that spoke that to you, but that was literally like, that would never, it was never even a discussion. Like, I don't know if you realize, like, never. There was never even.
So let me tell you, let me give
ever
you.
be a discussion, ever.
So check this out. So my, the neighborhood we lived in when I was a teenager, we had a house, and across the street was a house, but to the left of that house was another house, and a couple moved in, and Paul and Patty, and they had two daughters, a white couple. Mm-hmm. And Paul was one of the coolest guys. He had a boat. He always had a tan. His wife loved to entertain. She looked like a movie star, actually. She had long black hair, and females were always done and everything. And he loved playing music. And so I had a group. Actually, at the time, I had a breakdancing group. Oh, and so they used to come to my house and we'd practice. So anyway, his daughters were teenagers. So the oldest one liked me, and the youngest one, she's pretty cool. But anyway, Paul let us come to the house. And so we would go over the house, and his wife would make lemonade, and we would hang out. He super glued my fingers together one day. He says, hey, look, go like this. And he put a little piece of super glue there. And all my friends were standing around, and he was like, now squeeze it as hard as you can. He's like, now take your fingers apart. And I couldn't, because I didn't know what was going on. And then it was super glue. And, so everybody got a kick out of that.
What was in the lemonade, Steven?
I don't know. It was awesome. Okay. But they were great. And then one day, months later, they've been there for a while. We were walking through the neighborhood, and his daughters came out, and they wanted to walk with us. And so we were walking. And so when we walked up the street, we got to the corner of our block, and the house that's on the corner was Paul's best friend. And so while we were walking, the oldest daughter told me that she liked me and she wanted us to date or whatever. And I was like, no way. Like, no, that's not going to happen. Right. Because I didn't even like her like that. I saw her more as a sister because of the time we spent with her father and her mom. And she was, she was taller than me and everything. But anyway, so she grabbed me and she wanted to kiss me. And I was like, get off me. She clipped me, put me on the ground in the yard and tried to kiss me. And I was like, get off me, right? So I got her off me. And I was like, what's wrong with this girl, right? So we're walking around the block. And so my friends went to the store, and her and I kept walking. And all of a sudden you hear a car flying up, and it's her father. And he slams on brakes behind us, right? He comes out the car, he's yelling, he's cussing. He's like, how dare you embarrass me like that? We didn't know what he was talking about. How dare you do that? He slaps her, picks her up, throws her over the hood of the car, tells her to get in the car. Then he turns to me, and I'm like, what's going on, right? He goes to hit me, and I duck. He punched me in the back of my head.
Oh, my God.
Now, I'm a teenager. I back off, like I'm in shock, right? And he gets in the car, and he's yelling at her. So I run. I'm trying to run to my house. He's coming up behind me. He tries to hit me with his car. I dive out of the way. He gets home. He's beating his daughter to death. The youngest girl had run down the alley, and by the time I got to the alley, she's in the alley crying. So I'm like, Amy, what's going on? And I walk over to her. He's like, my dad is killing my sister. He's throwing her against the walls in the house. So I'm walking, and I had to walk past this house to get to my house. I can hear the horror. Oh, it's just horrible to get to my house. So anyway, I told you that to tell you this. Even though we were invited to the house, even though they fed us and they were nice and funny, the line was drawn when it looked like I was about to date his daughter. See, that's when that prejudice came out. It didn't come out any other time, but when you think you're going to connect with my daughter, you're wrong, right? And so I think that's when people have to deal with prejudice who say they aren't prejudiced. If your child ever brought home someone that was not your race,
Yeah.
that, I
So
mean, they've
both
literally
my
made
kids
movies about
have.
it. Huh?
So both my kids have.
Right. So that's when you know. And our challenge with, is this okay? And that's some of the things I think that really helps people deal with what's hidden in their hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but back to white privilege. I want to show you this before, because I don't know how much more time we got, but I want to show you this white privilege, right?
Yeah.
So I want to show you this. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen.
You want me to get rid of my big melon here?
No, it's gonna move you. You'll be okay.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with Dylan Roof? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Dylan Roof was accused of gunning down 9 people in a historic Black church, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what white privilege looks like is when he was arrested for it. That's him right there.
Uh-huh.
He looks familiar.
Yeah.
When he was arrested, he killed 9 people. When they arrested him, this is what they did. He was hungry on the way to the precinct. They took him to Burger King. Not only did they not shoot him or kill him, but they took him to Burger King because he was hungry on the way to the jail. That's white privilege. That's at the top of it, like racism, prejudice, all of that, right? So when you start talking about what does white privilege look like at the extreme level, that's what it looks like. It looks like unfair laws, unfair treatment, and that privilege part. That's where the privilege comes in. Not only was he arrested, but he was taken care of in such a way to show that if it was a Black or Hispanic person that had done that, a person of color, I should just say, I think it would have been a slightly different story and ending to that.
Right. So,
do you think people are looking at you because you're a white woman in a negative light, especially in this time period, because you're white?
Do I think that?
Yeah, do you think people now, especially now what's happened, because of what's happened, that...
I mean, I don't feel particularly targeted, but
Oh, good.
But I mean, I haven't felt like I have a valuable voice in several years. But I don't like the narrative that if I don't know your specific experience, that my voice is somehow invalid. I just don't ascribe to that. And I can tell you that if you ever wanted to talk to me about anything that had to do with being a woman, I would be all ears. I would love to hear that. I would never feel like you don't get to talk to me. You can just button that mouth because you're not a woman, whatever. Because guess what? All I know about being a woman is right in here, and none of us know how we're perceived on the outside. And so
Right.
if what I'm trying to communicate is one thing, but I'm being heard in a different way, and your insight, your perspective could help me grow and learn from that, why would I discount that? Why would I not listen to you? Why would I not take your wisdom from a different, I'm saying, somebody on the outside looking in? I can never have that perspective ever of myself, ever. Even if I look in a mirror, I'm always going to see a reverse. I can never see me the way you see me, ever.
So what would you say to a white woman that feels like she has privilege and she has a right to have that privilege?
Oh, has a right to have it?
A right to have that.
What would I say to her?
Yeah. Let's just say you're in a situation where someone's treated unfairly. You're at the store, someone's treated unfairly, a Black person or a person of color, and they leave and they're upset. And this white woman turns to you and say, those people they just get on my nerves, that they should even be in here.
So here's the thing. So here's what you don't know about me, just because it's never come up. But so I used to own a business, and I had 3 locations, and
Oh, a fitness place, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And so when we took over that place, we put an ad out and that we wanted some new employees, right, to hire some people. And so we interviewed everybody that applied for the job, and we ended up hiring a wonderful lady. She was kind of, I guess, really early 20s probably, and I won't say her name or anything, but she was actually a UNC student. She was so smart. She was so well spoken. She was really nice, very compassionate. She was just kind of like that perfect blend between probably smarter than most people, but extremely approachable, right? Which is kind of, I mean, isn't that what you want?
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was like this perfect blend. And she was really pleasant and pretty, but also very approachable. So, I mean, it was like this, I don't know, just all around, especially for a fitness place that was all women, it was just like the right thing. So we didn't feel like she would intimidate anybody, but I felt like she would just be there for everybody. She just was kind of your every person. She was great. We loved her. Still have a relationship with her, still love her. And we very quickly found out that although our clientele was very diverse, she apparently was the first Black person to be hired there. Excuse me 1 second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I didn't know that. And that never dawned on me. I never thought to ask that. We just put out an ad. We interviewed lots of people. And one day I got told that that somebody was not going to be told, like she wasn't going to coach anybody. Like they were not going to be coached by her.
Mm.
And I said, well, my goodness, what in the world? Like what happened? Right? Because my first approach was, as the business owner, was there some kind of an altercation? Were you offended in some way? Was something said? Because I know her. I mean, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding, but
Sure.
Let's see what happened, right? But no, it was sort of those people kind of thing.
Right.
And then I probably should be careful before you run out of town because I've already fought this fight. So then
some fights are worth fighting again, by the way.
They are. So then we started getting we started being like scrutinized by our landlord, which we had not been.
Yep, exactly.
And
right.
There'd never been an issue, there'd never been anything. And we lost about half of our membership, and then which we said, we had a talk with her. We said, look, yes, we know this is going on, and if you're willing to stay, we're in it. We're here. Like, so, your job is safe. I mean, unless we all have to close the doors, in which case I can't pay you to live, but
right.
As long as we have a place, you have jobs, so whatever. So I went in to pay the rent one day, and the secretary said, oh, well, he's actually here, the building owner. So you can, pay him in there. And I was like, okay. I mean, I always just hand the check to her, but okay. And so he said, how are things going? And I said, going great. And he said, yeah. Yeah, they are. They're going great. I mean, we're happy. And he said, yeah, I've heard there's some changes.
Oh, wow.
I said, well, yeah, anytime somebody takes over a business, I mean, I would assume there'd be changes, And anyway, I can't remember every part of the conversation, but at some point he said something about he's heard some complaints. And I said, so as a landlord, you've heard complaints about the inner workings of my business, like the experience of a customer at my business at a fitness club? That's interesting that they would think you would have any authority over a fitness environment, but what are the complaints? I'm intrigued. And he said, well, they listen to different music. And I said, no, I don't know. Who's they?
Yeah, who we're talking about.
Yeah. And he said, And I said, no, I don't. You're going to have to say it. Yikes. And he said, well, I think we understand one another. I said, well, I think what you don't understand is that I pay thousands of dollars every month to have licensed music. And so there are CDs that are already in a CD player. So no music's been changed. So I don't know what you're being told,
Wow.
but you might want to check on some sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people at
So,
your Rotary Club.
yeah. But in the meantime, sleep well because we're doing great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we also came home. We had a big family meeting, and we let the kids know that life might be changing for a little while, but that we were going to be moving our building, and it was going to cost us ridiculous amounts of money, and it might even prove to be the demise, of the venture.
Business, yeah.
Yeah. And so we did move. We ended up getting a bunch of our customers back. We ended up continuing our hiring practices the same way we always had. We kept everything the same. We hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And we actually were making great improvements, and people saw that. And I think we did a great job of weeding out the people that had no business enjoying what we had to offer anyway. And I certainly wasn't going to bow down or kowtow to them, or make them feel comfortable being disgusting. And so anyway, so we just kept doing what we did, and we really did do well for a lot of years. And then as the economy kind of took a turn, we ended up one by one selling them off and moving out of that. But yeah, that's what we ended up doing.
Well, first let me say thank you for being the person that you are and taking the stand that you took. Not many people would have done that, because at the root of what happened was women who thought they had white privilege, thought they could intimidate you into changing who you were. You let them know that wasn't going to happen, and you took a stand. And so I think that's how we heal this country. We root out those who would divide us that way, and we isolate them into a place where at the end of the day, they realize they're not welcome in our businesses or in our home or community if they're going to be that way. Because you can't have community, which is common unity. You can't have that when you have that kind of attitude. That's either white privilege or black prejudice or whatever, any one of those dynamics.
Right. Well, and so here's the thing though. So I want to be clear about this, because yeah, I see that as evil. Okay. But I also had a very, very obvious Jewish client, okay, and a member, and one of my employees was white, and so skin to skin, right, we have what looks to be just two regular old white women, right, but if we're going to do if we're going to categorize everybody, then we've got, I guess, just a regular white woman and a Jewish white woman. I don't know what.
So you're talking about ethnicity now, so that's a little different.
I know there's so many intersectionalities of how does my victimhood stack up, and what are my privileges, and I don't know. I don't mean this to sound insensitive, because I'm talking about myself, but for me, I truly don't care. I don't go through the world from inside here, like my little driver inside here. I don't go through the world like as a white woman. I'm a
That's
person.
beautiful.
I just go through the world as a person, and I have ideas, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, and I say stuff, and sometimes it's pretty decent, and sometimes it's kind of stupid, and I mean, I just kind of, you know what I mean? I have good days, I have bad days, and I hope that somebody takes the time to get to know, different parts, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, and that's probably all okay too, but I just don't go through life looking for opportunities to feel put down or feel victimized or feel whatever. I don't know.
So you said you had a white woman, regular white woman, and a Jewish white woman.
Yes, a regular white woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generic. She was a generic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to work one day, and normally I opened, but this particular day I didn't. And so the white woman employee had put on a little extra weight, and so she was a little bit overweight, but she still knew, she had been trained, she was certified, she knew how to use the machines. Mm-hmm. That's what matters, okay? Right. Not whatever's going on in her personal life that might prevent her at the time from using the machines.
Okay.
So the client woman was over on the machine, not using them properly. Okay, just kind of like, whatever. So my employee said, remember, you want to make sure that you're lined up here, that you're really pumping that, okay, whatever it was. Well, with a full circuit in the morning, this client, this customer said, I don't need to listen to anything you say. When you look like I do, then you can talk to me.
So that's body shaming. That's different. That wasn't even about ethnicity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so then I got to work. That customer was gone. My employee was very upset. Like, so just, she was still functioning, but she was so upset, and she was like really humiliated because that had happened in front of everybody, and she had to continue doing her job, which is very, you're the focal point. So she was like, okay, I'm just going to be out here in front of everyone feeling awful. And so I could tell, like, you know, I think she cried, and she just felt really terrible. And so I said, well, I really appreciate you being brave and continuing on and being professional and doing your job. I appreciate you not lashing out at a customer. I will handle this. I will be here in the morning. And so I was. And when that customer came in the morning, I had her whole membership sitting on the top of the desk. And I said, I need to talk with you before you just go beep and walk over and do your stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, how are you? And I said, well, I'm not great right now. We'll see how I am in a couple minutes. And so I let her know that was absolutely 100% inappropriate. It was unkind. It was just so mean, so incredibly mean-natured, and absolutely intolerable. Won't have it. Will not have it here. And she has a choice. She can either apologize to that employee, or she's welcome to take her membership.
Yeah. All
the hundreds of dollars, and you can take it, because I don't need that. I don't need that. God will bring along another member that will contribute positive things, not be toxic. Mm-hmm. And so I tell that story not because, oh, listen to all the, you know, way I stand up for people. That's not the point. The point is that wrong is wrong, evil is evil. And I guess when you either start taking score or you stop taking score, it reduces everything back to just a baseline of evil. And so, again, I'm not saying that if there's an issue that we shouldn't address it. I'm not saying that. Please understand that's not what I mean. But I do think that there is a cycle of becoming so caught up in where we file each grievance that we've zoomed in so tight that it sort of becomes the lens through which we see everything, instead of, you know what, mean people suck, and sometimes their meanness comes out because of this issue or that issue, and at the end of the day, I don't even care why. You know what I mean? I mean, I do if it's something I can help. You know what I mean? If I can be like, oh, well, here, let me help you with that. I kind of care why, but ultimately I don't, because if you're hurting my friend or you're hurting this other person, that's your job to get that fixed. You don't have a right to just walk around, you know, punching everybody else in the face because your feelings are hurt or because you disagree with something, you know. Yeah, right. Like I used to tell my kids, you have to learn to suffer in silence. You know, you have to. That's just, you have to. You can't go through the house wailing because your stomach hurts. Like, just suffer quietly. And so there is, I think there's a, you know, I think that's just part of being mature too. But anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how to handle, I don't know how to, I guess, handle all of it because like everybody else, I didn't ask to be born female. I didn't ask to be born in America. I didn't ask to be born with the skin color I have. And you didn't ask for any of those things either. And what is so hear me on this. Is there such a thing as height privilege?
Height privilege? Absolutely.
Right. So you know, if my dream was to be in the NBA, guess what little girl's never going to get her dream?
Well, you're not going to be in the NBA, maybe the WNBA, but
No,
yeah.
no. I wanted to be in the NBA, right? So, but I wasn't born male, and I wasn't born 7 feet tall. So what I'm saying is that at some point, things just sort of level themselves back out. Or I could just walk around being really upset. I'm not saying that you are, but I could be really upset with everybody who's 6'5" and above, because they had an opportunity that I didn't have. And
See, this is where
they didn't buy that. They didn't choose that. They're I mean, so what should they not play in the NBA because I can't? Or, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like, where's the answer? There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt, but where's the answer?
I'm going to tell you where the answer comes in for that situation, because every situation is different. But, the story goes down. You could talk about the story of Michael Jordan. It's fine. It's fine. You got to do something. All right. Go ahead and pause it.
FedEx. Hold on. I'm going to pause this.
Okay. All right. So we were talking about an example of what you were saying when it comes to like sports and height.
Yeah.
So a good example of that is Michael Jordan. I don't know if you know his story, but he was actually he played basketball when he was a teenager, wanted to be on the high school basketball team, and he was cut from the team. They said he wasn't good enough, that there's no way they're going to let him play. And so what happened was, although he had very little skill, he wasn't the tallest person either at the time. He practiced like for the next year, like all day, almost every day, to get his skill level up. And he grew, I think it was like 6 or 7 inches, like over summer or something crazy. And you see what he became later on. But I think what happens is, if there's a certain truth to genetics plays a role in what you can become in society, because you're designed for certain things by height, by weight, by strength, by knowledge, all those things play in. But then also there's something that's an added element, which is heart. Because there's many stories of people like Spuds McKenzie, who was not even, close to 6 feet. He was like 5 feet something, I think. And he's the shortest. He looks like a kid playing with everybody else. But he played with the tallest NBA players out there and made a name for himself and had the skill level to work beyond the expectation. But he's an exception. He's not the norm, right? So everybody short doesn't get to play in the NBA.
I thought you were telling me I had a chance, but okay.
Yeah, you do. you absolutely do have a chance. But in the reality of where we are in life, there's certain things that you qualify for that I don't, and certain things I qualify for that you don't, because of our gender, or our education, or just skills and hobbies we have, or our skin color. It's just a reality of the skewed world we live in. It's not fair at all out here. It's just not. But the thing about you is you said you were talking about how should you handle this, right? You are part of the answer. You're not part of the problem. I don't think you have to do anything but just continue being yourself and telling your story, because from what I've heard from you over the time we've been on the call here, that you have the proper understanding of human relations, that we're all human, that we all should be treated fairly with love and kindness. You're part of the answer. And I think having more people like you tell your story and inform others who look like you why they might be thinking may be wrong in a society where we should be together as community, will help kind of have people think differently. Because, for example, there's a white man, his daughter got pregnant by a black guy. He's prejudiced, absolutely prejudiced. His daughter had the baby, and the baby's biracial. This man loves that child to pieces, and he doesn't care that she's part black. To him, that's part of his DNA, so it's fine. That child becomes a bridge to helping him understand why black isn't wrong, right? And I think that's when we have more examples of where we have common unity, we can start crossing. I say it this way: if there was a prejudiced man, he hates black people, maybe he's in the KKK, and him and I are both on at the Grand Canyon, looking over the side, and he slips, and he's hanging there, and it's just him and I, and he has no strength to pull him up. If I reach out my hand and say, I want to help you, that man will let me pull him back to safety. Do you hear me? Why? Because life is more important than the ignorance we have about what we perceive to be wrong and hate. And, you know, when it comes down to life, it changes. Just like if it was reversed, a black man that hates white people, he's not going to say, no, I'm not going to let you help me and let go and die. He's not going to do that because he values his life more than his prejudice. And I think when you can get to that moment of realization, then you can change the heart and mind of people. You know, then you can change. For example, you know, the white cop, there's a video that shows this in some pictures. There's a white cop that got cut off from his group, and the mob wanted to get to him. And black men surrounded him and made a fence, and they would not let them get to this man. And this was a big, buff white guy. He had a stick. I mean, he looked like he could do some damage, but you, as big as you are, you can't fight, you know, 50 people coming at you. It's just not going to happen. But that moment shows the heart of what America should be about.
Yes, yes. Even
though a cop killed a black man, there's no way I'm going to let black people stand there and kill a white person, because he had nothing to do with that. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you'll see another one where a black cop is standing by her police car, and actually I posted this on Facebook, and she just lifts up her hand like in solidarity like this. People started walking up to her, black and white, giving her hugs. They were just hugging her. And I was like, man, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is the America we live in, and unfortunately the narrative that's being controlled and pushed out is all the violence, negativity, and then of course Antifa, you know, trying to destabilize America with anarchy and all that stuff. And so people start believing the narrative instead of looking for the reality that we can change these things.
So that leads me to what might be my final question to you, and that is, if, and I know this is a huge if, this is fairyland, okay, because we can't do this, but if it was possible to remove all media, okay, you know, if you go back probably less than this, but let's just say 100 years, we didn't have like your news was whatever was going on at town square.
Yes.
Right? And then if you go back 50 years, and I'm almost 50, so if we go back, I don't know, 30, 40 years, right? Even before cable television, where TV came on at 6 o'clock in the morning, went off at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, right? And everybody had what, 4, 6 channels, whatever. That's before we wanted our MTV.
I remember that.
And so there was a lot of local news, and then like I think it was at 8 p.m. or something, we had world news, right? And so, but it came on one time. You saw it or you missed it, period. There was no DVR, there was no VCR, there was no on demand, there was no YouTube, there was no 24/7 where you see it over and over and over and over and over. And so what's interesting is you talked about truth or perception being our truth. And one of the things I think is so, you know, not what you said, but just that idea of accepting that is so preposterous, because data shows we actually live in the safest time in human history, between medicine, and that's okay, we can look it up. I promise you.
No, you said the word safe, and safe is relative. So, but you're talking about in time.
Correct.
Just like safe. Okay, so
yes,
keep it in context.
I'm just talking about, you know.
I mean, I believe that.
Right. So we have medications. We understand what germs are. We have antibiotics. We have technology that can lock doors and keep people out. All kinds of things.
Sure.
Airbags in our cars. I mean, so people, we can outlive things that would have killed people.
Yeah, it's true.
A lot. We even have networks like Amber Alerts that can get children back in those horrific situations where they've been taken. Mm-hmm. So, which is not a new phenomenon, right?
Right.
So, and yet when you hear people talk, just regular people chatting, people feel like times are so bad. These are the most dangerous times. And
it's so true that these are very dangerous times.
Okay, now hold on. We're not counting 2020. Okay, we got murderers. This is different.
No, you take 2020 out of the equation. It's amazing how
this
God
is
does
when we can buy a planner for the year. Not now. I'm talking about now. Yeah.
No, we're living in dangerous times in 2019 back. because these are the times where those who have power are fighting to keep that power, and those who are below them are struggling to survive.
And you think people weren't doing that before?
Not on the level that they are now, because see, there's a global, it wasn't global before. This was nation to nation. Now it's a global movement for this power struggle.
Right,
and that's the only difference that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, the agenda that's been put forth globally is rolling out, and we see it playing out. For example, well, I won't even go down that road, but the reality is that that's what's making it unsafe, because those who have the power have the influence, and they control the narrative. Out of all the news stations and companies that are in our nation, in the world, they're owned by 6 people. And those 6 people are globalists. They're together and unified, which is why a lot of the messages that get to the public through their channels are the same narrative. It's not the whole story. It's just a part of the story.
Right. And so that's why I was saying that what if we could unplug those things, do you think that you would have a different perception of who you are and what your place is in society in America? Like when you go to the grocery store and you talk to, because here, let me just say this, rather than trying to come up with some analogy for you, let me just tell you. I turn on the television and I hear racism in America. We're pitted against each other. Nobody can, we can't even coexist. It's neighbor fighting neighbor. It's the Hatfields and McCoys. This is brutal. And I'm not even talking 2020. Okay. Yeah. I'm talking, let's go back 5 years. It is, you better be strapped and just go get some bread. This is bad stuff. Okay.
It's propaganda is what it is, but go ahead.
Yes, because let me tell you what happens. So I go down the street to my little Henderson, North Carolina.
Wow.
Food Lion, okay?
Did you go to it wasn't Piggly Wiggly?
No, we don't have that here.
Okay.
But so I just go down the street and you know what? Everybody goes, hey, like this. And then we go through the produce and we're like, oh, those are beautiful. Oh yeah, have you seen it? Oh no, I haven't. And we just chat, and guess what colors we are?
White.
No, all colors.
Now I'm playing with you. It's Henderson, North Carolina. I'm with you. Yeah.
All colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's some little black lady going, oh, did you see these steaks over there? And I'm like, they sure are predator or whatever, And the guy in the produce, I talk to him all the time. And then my friend is the manager over there, and walk over and give him a hug. And
so we're talking. What you're talking about is a slice of America that is Southern. Okay, Southern.
That's supposed to be worse now. Come on, friend.
No. Not Henderson, North Carolina. If you go to Tennessee or Alabama, we might be having a different discussion. But
I'm gonna tell you what. One of my coworkers is from Alabama, and he would be so offended right now. So offended.
Well, I could talk to him because his family might be the exception, like you are the exception. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that racist stuff still exists openly.
How many exceptions do there have to be before we become the rule?
Well, I'm an exception. In my family, I'm an exception. My wife it's amazing that my wife is not that I didn't marry someone that is not. I didn't think I was going to marry a black woman, quite honestly, because my mom didn't teach me to look at color. It just didn't happen. So it just so happened that all of my girlfriends that were white and Italian and Asian, they weren't there when I gave my life to Christ and was ready to get married. Because if they were there when that happened and we transitioned like Jill and I did, we would have been married. So because it doesn't matter to me what color you are.
Right.
So that's why I said I'm the exception. My best friend was white. His father flew for the Air Force, and I grew up with his family and everything. So I never had a problem with that. Matter of fact, I had a problem with people coming to me talking pro-black craziness. That was my issue, in and outside my family. It's just stupidity to me.
Yeah, my daughter not married. Sorry, my daughter dated a Mexican for I don't know a while. Like we 100% thought they'd get married, and they could not stand her.
Oh sure, yeah.
Hated her, banned them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those cultures, a lot of cultures.
But wait a minute. They are both. And at the time, I don't think now, but at the time, they both were more educated than me, and now I think even still make way more money than we do. And I mean, it just, yeah, it was like,
But see, a lot of times that happens because they're looking through the lens of their past. So you don't know what happened with their interactions with white people before your daughter came along. You don't know where their son was when he decided to date a white girl. Maybe he was being mean to his family about, you know, their ignorance and him educated. He's gonna marry somebody like him. And I mean, you just don't know what they're filtering their thoughts through. Is unfair to her, honestly, because they didn't get a chance to get to know her, you know. So that's just stupidity. Again.
so it's just, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, it just feels like there's a lot of really good, and there's a lot of really ignorant, and there's a lot of really mean. And it's hard for me to put a gender or a skin color on it.
Well, you asked a question. You asked a question earlier. You said, you know, what would it take and what would it look like if we remove the news and all those outside influencers, right? And I often thought about it. I said, you know what? If an EMP exploded around this world and killed every computer like forever, there's no more computers, right? It just was not going to work. We would actually be forced back into a place where we are now just community. We only can get our news through our community. I think it would make a better world.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would love our neighbors more because we would need them more. I think we would give more because we would need more. You know, you have access to food, you know, I have access to clean water. You know, it would force us to truly be community.
Right.
And I think
Martin Luther, but somebody couldn't come in with a story that didn't make any sense to us, and we go, oh yeah, that must be the truth now. Oh yeah, okay. We go, wait, what? I know all these people.
You'd have to learn for yourself. You couldn't be programmed. And then that's
like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's part of the challenge. And I think the creation of the radio and the creation of television, then the internet, for me personally, has been one of the most destructive things to mankind that there could be, because it allows those who have the power over those things to control what comes out of them, and ultimately controls how people perceive the world around them.
Yeah, which is why I'm so angry with the media, because they used to have a real important job in this country. They protected freedom and liberty because they were the ones not telling us how to think, but telling us just what was happening, and then we could make our own decisions. But now everything's spun. So it wasn't just a you know, such and such wasn't arrested, so and so stormed the whatever, and you see what I'm saying? It's like all the loaded words, you know, and with all the connotation, so that you believe all the stuff, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and not only that, but now with added technology, we add, I mean, what I saw a what was it? I saw a picture. You know, I'm not even going to go down that road, but I think it'll open up another can of worms. But anyway, it's just, you know, we see things, and it's like this gets compared with this, but then if you actually dig a little bit, these things have nothing to do with each other, actually.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to go click, put, and then you post it, and it goes out to millions of people, and that becomes the new story. And it's like, okay.
And then people get used. And people get used to receiving information that way. And so as soon as they get the sound bite, they run with it as if it's truth, without anybody ever checking. And I'm so quick to check, especially people that show up on my profile with any information that this happened, and I go check it. Then I'll correct them right in their post with a link, you know, to the truth. And I think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take those who are able to see things clear enough to show those who are being deceived where the deception may lie, and then also love them enough to not hate them because of it, but kind of show them, like, you should do this yourself, because it's important. You know, it's important. Matter of fact, you know, when it comes to reception, you know, there's something that I think that I want to show you. I don't know, just in the last couple of minutes of our conversation, because I think we've probably been on for 2 hours or something.
Have we really? Wow.
And I don't mind, because you know what? I'm free. I've been set free since April 3rd from my job. And so now my own company, yeah, mypurposemypower.com is my job. That's what I do.
That's awesome.
But I'm going to show you this, and this kind of will give you some insight to the perception piece, right? So check this out. All right, you see that?
Mm.
That lioness, a pride was attacking another pride, and they started grabbing their cubs and killing them.
Yep.
And so that's what the news reported. This is actually what's happening.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is what happens with American news, you know, that these attacks are occurring and it's such a tragedy and we need to do something about it. And then us fact checkers go and find the picture and go, no, guys, that's not what's happening. She's carrying her cub to safety. Yep. And you guys need to stop believing the media, you know, because of, you know, they want you to believe the story so you can react.
Yes.
And instead of checking facts. So that's something we got to fight against. And I think being fully aware, like both of us are, and caring enough about those we love and those who hate us, we still love them, and you know, we'll be there to help them if they need it. It takes people like us to not only have conversations like this, but help to shed light on truth without being so angry and mad at people who don't believe it. Because you only can help those who want help. It's the reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad you asked me that question, and I'm thankful that you gave me the amount of time that you gave me today.
Well, thank you for responding and setting this part up. Yeah, I didn't think about a call. I just was expecting a couple sentences about how you felt, if you believed it, you agreed with it or not, and so yeah. But
I think that I was going to tell you this earlier, that there's a guy who was a pastor in Tulsa, and he wanted to buy this building for his ministry. The people that own it were Prejudice, and so they had a meeting, and another group came in to buy the building, and when they went to sign the contract, he comes walking through the door, grabs the pen, and signs the contract. And the people who were selling the building was like, "What's going on?" Well, that was his staff. They were white. They negotiated the deal until it was time for him to sign. And I think that, even in this world system, we know we have to operate a certain way because of that ignorance. And so we have to be as wise as serpents, but as gentle as doves, like the Bible says. And then we can win. We can win and overcome that when it's time. So, but I wanted to leave you with this quote, if I could.
Yeah.
I found this quote and I thought it was pretty cool. This is the answer, by the way, I'm about to show you. This is the answer. So Martin Luther King, nonviolent protesting to help give African Americans rights. He says, what do you say? Darkness? No, you read that. What does it say?
I have to move our picture out of our way. Hold on. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Yep. And that's the answer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's how we win, and that's how we help those who are being hurt and those who need our help.
Yeah. And then so instantly, what my mind does, where my mind goes, is into the biblical definition of love.
So do you know where that's at in the Bible?
Well, I do.
Yeah, I do. Let me grab my trusty sword, which is right behind me. Let's see. I believe that's in Ephesians chapter 4. Might be wrong, but let's take a look. The Bible actually says that God is love. So that's the first thing. All right. Or is it?
Where are you looking? It's in 1 Corinthians.
Yeah, I was thinking it was Corinthians, but it is 1 Corinthians. Okay. Aha. All right. So you got to read 1 Corinthians definition of love.
It does not. Yeah, you want me to read it or you read it?
Yeah, what chapter is it?
13, 4 through 8.
All right.
Well, let's see. Hold on. Let me make sure that's correct.
1 Corinthians 4 through 8.
It may not be 4 through 8. Hold on. Look at us not knowing the Bible.
Yeah. Hey, you don't know it. You don't know it till you use it. So
Yeah, 4 through 5, and then it can go on. But
okay.
all right. So love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs.
That's good. That's love. That's love. And in Ephesians chapter 4, what I was thinking about was chapter 4, verses 1 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
It says, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. That's what love does.
Right. Right.
So if we
Absolutely.
can live out
And
those
you know
words.
what? Yeah. So so hold on. This is I didn't want to stop at 5. I do want to go all the way to 8 because all right, this is a little bit of a different the version's a little different and my phone's about to die, but so starting at 4, love is patient, kind, does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. And then moving on to 6, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. The implying one, a single truth for everyone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. But the love never fails.
Yeah, it's good.
And the truth, it's, I think sometimes, one of the things that I talk about, not just with my kids, but also with my students, one of the questions I ask sometimes in class is there a difference between being nice and being kind? And I think there's a profound difference. Because this is a frivolous little example, but if I put on a horrid dress, Stephen, and I said the worst, if I asked you the worst question known to mankind, does this dress make me look fat?
Well, I got a great answer for that.
Well, what is it?
Compared to what?
That's an awful answer. Okay, no, but you might, and this works, male to female friends, whatever, right? To say the nice thing is you would never want to hurt my little feelings, and so you say, no, you look great.
I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, right, but sometimes that's seen as being nice. Right?
What I would say is that's a trick question, because if I say if you do look fat, you're gonna get mad at me. And if I say you don't look fat, you're gonna be mad again because I'm not telling you the truth, because you asked the question because you feel fat. So that's the question. Does it make you feel fat? Right.
Yeah. My daughter, she's so funny. She says, she said, I would never ask somebody if these pants or this dress or whatever made me look fat. I know I'm fat. It's not the dress's fault. She's actually not fat, but she's just saying, it's just funny. She's just like, why would you do that? But my point just is sometimes we consider sparing someone's feelings worth it because it seems nice.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
But if in fact that kept you blind, if in fact it kept you impotent, if in fact it kept you trapped, then really it's more kind to be willing to sacrifice myself and what you might think of me, and even a friendship, to tell you the truth in love, in kindness, believing that either now or eventually it will be meaningful to you enough so that whatever hurt was there, that it would heal and we would be restored.
Okay.
But that you would always be able to trust my yes is my yes, my no is my no.
That's where I'm at.
And that I would speak the truth.
Yeah.
Now, as I know better, I can speak truth better, right? So we are limited only to what we know. Okay. And we're held accountable to that. So if I can only see something and I'm trying, right? I mean, in earnest, if I can only see a thing, just like with that picture you just showed me. And I came to you and I said, look, I have done my research. I have looked at it every angle I know how. And to the best of my ability, it looks like this poor little cub's head's being eaten off, right? So,
Right.
but if that's all I could see, and then that's what I said to you, then, again, in humility, right? Knowing that there's some error, there's a margin where error is possible, then that's truth. But as I learned more, I would then, come back and tell you more. And I think it is important to, again, that has to be measured. You can't then just go, well, I just walk around telling everybody the truth about everything because that's my job. You're like, well, okay, you're not the police sheriff. I mean, you're not the truth sheriff, right? So you have to make sure will it
be tactful.
Right. And will this heal? And is it any of your darn business? Right. So I mean, there's
Right.
that. But I'm just talking about, it's just very frustrating because sometimes I do see things online and I do see these conversations that are really more like just slams back and forth. And I'm thinking to myself, the scientist, the social scientist part of me comes out and I'm like, but you're both dead wrong. Like your whole premise is absurd. There's no logic in this. Like this is a false dichotomy. This is false logic. It's all a horrible argument.
Yeah.
And I want to say that, but as soon as I do, guess what I am?
You are a troll.
I'm a racist.
They're gonna attack you on both sides.
I'm a racist, 100% racist. I have to be.
Yeah.
I have to be. It can't just be that I'm a critical thinker that sees a hole in your darn argument because it's stupid. It can't be that.
Look, I literally today dealt with that as I was scrolling through both Facebook and LinkedIn and hearing people's responses and just seeing the venom coming out of people and wanting to deal with some of that. And I had to think about, like you said, am I the true sheriff? And actually, yes, I am. I am a true sheriff.
Sometimes we are, yeah.
But I'm only the true sheriff over those that have given me that job, and that's those in my church and my family and the others. Yeah. If someone asks me my opinion, that's different. But so anyway, I literally went to post and was like, oh, nope, I'm not even getting involved. I'm not even going to do it because every battle's not for us to fight, and everybody doesn't want to hear truth. So we have to measure it. We have to see if it's a discussion where someone's wanting to know. Like if someone says, they see the picture of the lion eating a little cub's head and she's crying and she's in pain about it. And I come up to her and say, are you open to seeing the other side of this picture? Because there's more to it than it's something there. And it's always good when you can say there's something they're not telling you or showing you, because then that it's a human nature. Someone's holding something back from me.
Right.
What is it? And then you show me the other picture and go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She's saving the cub. She's not eating the cub. And I think that's where being able to be rational, but being patient and kind in the midst of helping people see the truth for what it is what's necessary nowadays, because there are people who benefit from division and destruction and confusion, and they just want to create chaos and create that tension between people. Right. How is it? Okay, I got a little excited. Let me calm down.
You're good.
How is it as soon as they go to phase 2 out of this coronavirus, we go right back to where we were before we got into it, this race baiting and rioting? How is it that was the immediate thing that happened right after that? And that's the kind of stuff that, they talk about in terms of controlling the population. They said that the coronavirus, they was asking a doctor, why do you think they're putting all these rules in place and there's so much fear that's being promoted out here in the world? And the doctor said, fear is a great way to control people. Fear is a great way to control people. So here we go coming out of the coronavirus. What can we do to create more tension, more fear? Bam. Nice little video up close, person dying right there on screen. And not only that, but let's news cycle it. Let's play it over and over and over and over. And see, and that's the kind of stuff that you have to sometimes step back and go, what are they trying to do?
Yeah.
And then you see behind the scenes people that are like, they had piles of bricks that were stacked up and people going in cars handing bricks and then showing people getting this crazy thing. Everybody has a camera on their phone, showing people, videotaping people, paying them to go get picnic chairs and throwing them through windows.
Yep.
And you see all those things. But again, that's how you know that there's a plan and a strategy to create division to show the other side of the story. That's instead of the side where people are trying to heal and help and be like us, try to resolve things and create peace and love between those, even who might be enemies, to try to help them seek common ground. So all we can do is continue being who we are, and that is be positive and share love, like the definitions of love being long suffering and kind and all those things. And I think if we can continue doing that, then we can at least make the world that we can impact a little bit better. And really, that's all we can do. That's our moral rights as citizens of the United States of America. And we are in one of the worst times, but the best times, because people know they need help.
Right.
And they're looking for people who can help them see and understand and be better and survive all this chaos that's out here. So
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, friend, I have so enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thank you. I have too. This is amazing. I'm glad you reached out to me today. It is the high point of my day.
Well, yay. Thanks. Me too. Yeah.
I literally didn't eat breakfast or lunch, and that's a rare thing. So I'd rather have this conversation than to eat. So that was good.
I thought you were just telling me how low you had set the bar. You're like, it didn't take a lot for this to be the highlight. I didn't even have food. So
yeah, just the conversation, because even in my post on Facebook, I talked about the solution is for us to have candid, open conversations, take a self-assessment to realize that the issue lies within us, and if we can deal with us and our own issues and then come together collectively, we actually collectively can create change, especially the church being the model for that, and then outside of the church, extending that love to everyone else. Right.
All right, well, if we find another thing to do it again, we should do it again.
Look, you got me thinking about creating a podcast. I invite you on to be a guest on my show.
Okay. I don't know if anybody listen. You'll watch your listenership go.
No, we'll pick something good, probably about anything about being a parent right now, because that's so hard for a lot of people with the COVID situation, everything that's happening. So that's something that's been on my heart. Is hearing from you on that, as well as just being a woman, like you said, would be a great conversation. So I'll definitely look to you to be a guest for those kind of things, and being a wife, because you guys been married. You and Harry been married how long?
Almost 30 years.
Wow. Yep. Jill and I
actually have a ton to say about being a wife.
You do?
I do.
Well, good, because I wrote a book called The Good Husband's Guide to a Happy Wife.
Really?
And, I'm going to be bringing that out soon. So.
Oh, I would love to read that.
Absolutely. I want you to read it and give me some feedback. So
yeah.
But it's really for Harry, because it's about helping him fall back in love with you. And that's the whole point, is beginning.
That's a lot of assumption you got going on there, mister.
Well, he may already be in love with you, but a lot of husbands, after years and years and years, they take their wives for granted, and that's unfortunate. But just remind them about, who their wife was when they met them, and to remind them why they need to do what they did before they met them to keep them. So. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I'd love to talk to you sometime too about the process of the book writing, because it's been on my heart for a long time. Just about sort of like the female responsibility side. Mm-hmm.
We got some wild women in these streets today. Woo! And I'm not saying that because I'm almost 50. I'm saying that even from my 17 and 18-year-old self. I'm like, when I was 17 or 18, if I got a text, there was no texting, but if I got a text, you got a handwritten note. That's what you got. Thank you. Look, one of those. That's right. Yeah. If I got something like that asking me for some of the things that girls get asked for today. Oh no, that's true. Not only that, but what girls are asking from guys today. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Yeah. And so anyway, not only that, but this, I'm going to sound like I'm 412 years old right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. And this is where you'll lose all your listeners. But but the other thing I don't understand too is at what point, and maybe I'm wrong, but at what point did girls decide that boys don't want ladies anymore? Because they say things on social media, number one, that are appalling, but they also, the things they brag about as young girls, I would be ashamed of, even when I was their age. Yeah. I mean, I didn't take naps, but if I did, I wouldn't tell everybody that this a whole mood that I now have to sleep for another 6 hours during the day. Like, how is that industrious? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand.
There's been a fracturing and a redefining of what it means to be both male and female. And that would take a whole.
Does mean anything?
Oh yeah, and that's the point, is that there's even in the Asian culture, they have a thing called K, which is you need to be, I think it's androgynous. You need to not look female or male, and that's a whole another classification.
Yeah.
So, but you know, there's a whole new another hour and a half or two of talking for that subject.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be our next subject. We can talk about that, which would be pretty cool. Because I think that it could really bring out some real truth and bring some reality to people who they don't even know this stuff is happening.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So it's called K.
Yeah, K in the Asian culture, and I think the term is androgyny. I'm not. It's just.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, but yeah, they have, and even in America, you see it happening now, because sometimes you'll see in commercials, you're like, is that a male or a female? Like, you just can't tell. They're so in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that's another one of those agendas to make gender a neutral thing.
Yeah.
So
that's actually one of the things I noticed. If you watch any sci-fi, and I'm going back to like a long time ago, you know, Star Trek and all that kind of stuff. You watch that stuff and you notice all their like unitards from the future, they are androgynous. You know what I mean? They're like, everybody just kind of looks like the same thing, and everybody wears a uniform. Like, what? Why are we all in private school in the future? I don't understand. What are you doing?
Well, that's actually designed from a military standpoint.
Yeah.
That's where that's from with the show. Because the uniforms and the markings, the things they wear, and then.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about the Starfleet. I'm talking about like whenever they go to some new planet, everybody's always in like some flowy unitard thing, and it's like. Well,
you know, it wasn't like that when Star Trek first came out. That wasn't the case.
Right.
The original Star Trek was a beast.
I know.
Everybody looked completely different, but it was more kind of sexual though. The first generation on that, but
Captain Kirk and his green women.
Yeah, buddy. They just that was all about. But yeah, you're right. In the later years, you're right. Everybody had their kind of look in uniform, because they got tired of creating creatures. By the way, this is what it came down to.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to make them look more humanoid. All the different ones. So. Yeah.
Gotcha.
They only work on the face.
Right. Yeah. All the differences right here. Like I just have that tusk now or something, but everything else is the same. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that'd be cool. Just let me know when you want to do that one. I'd love to have that conversation.
Okay. All right. Well, have a great day. Keep your head up. Be safe.
I will.
Okay.
Tell Harry I said hello.
I was just gonna say, tell Jill and the kiddos hello. Send them our love from the Polk family.
Cool.
All right.
We'll do. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too.